I used to think every family had a favorite child. You know, the one everyone brags about at Christmas, the one whose artwork ends up framed, whose report cards get laminated, whose mistakes are cute stories retold at dinner parties. In my family, that was my sister. And me? I was the extra, the side character in the story of their perfect daughter. I'm 2 years younger than her, which doesn't sound like much, but it felt like a canyon growing up. She was always one step ahead. When she learned to read, she got praised for being gifted. When I learned to read, it was, well, of course, you're just following her. When she got straight A's, it was proof she was destined for great things. When I brought home B's with a couple of A's sprinkled in, my mom would sigh, "If only you'd apply yourself like your sister." I'll never forget the Christmas when I was 6 and she was 8. I had been so excited. I'd saved up my allowance for weeks to buy a gift for my mom at the school fair. It was this plain white mug with little red hearts. To me, it was perfect. I wrapped it in wrinkly paper and couldn't wait to see her face. My sister gave her a crayon drawing of flowers. Mom opened mine first, smiled politely, set it down, and moved on. When she unwrapped the drawing, she gasped like it was a masterpiece, taped it right to the fridge, and said, "See, this is real talent. You could learn from her." My little 6-year-old heart sank. That mug disappeared into a cupboard, and I don't think I ever saw it again. It was like that in every corner of my childhood. If I scored a goal at soccer, Dad would clap and say, "Nice hustle." But when my sister hit the right notes at her piano recital, they called her a prodigy. I remember sitting in the back seat after one of those recitals, still in my muddy cleats, listening to my parents talk about how she's going places. I stared out the window and wondered if they'd ever say the same about me. Even birthdays felt lopsided. At mine, I'd get a cake and some small presents, but the attention always drifted back to her achievements. "Did you hear she won the spelling bee?" Or "She's starting advanced math next semester." It was like my existence was just a stage for her spotlight. I remember one year my aunt leaned over and whispered, "Don't feel bad, honey. Some kids are just born to shine brighter." At the time, I didn't even understand what that meant, but I felt it like a stone in my stomach. As I grew older, I started to notice the smaller, quieter details that made it so clear. At the dinner table, my mom always asked my sister about her day first. If I tried to talk about mine, I'd get interrupted. Report cards? My sister's got hung on the fridge. Mine ended up in a drawer. Even silly things. If we both wore new outfits, relatives would say, "Wow, she looks just like a model." And when they looked at me, it was, "Well, you look comfortable." The worst part wasn't just the favoritism. It was the way they twisted it to make me feel like I was crazy for noticing. If I ever complained, my mom would laugh and say, "Don't be so dramatic. We love you both equally." Or my dad would scold, "Stop being jealous of your sister. Why can't you just be happy for her?" I learned early on that speaking up just got me painted as the bitter one, the problem child, the jealous sibling. So I stayed quiet. I swallowed it down. I told myself if I worked harder, if I got better grades, if I achieved something big enough, maybe they'd finally see me. Maybe they'd finally say, "We're proud of you too." But that moment never came. And the thing is, when you grow up in someone else's shadow long enough, you start to believe that's all you're worth. By the time I hit middle school, I'd already learned my role in the family. Blend in, don't complain, and accept that my sister was the star. She was 2 years older, which meant she hit every milestone first. And every time she did, my parents acted like she'd invented it. Her first school dance, her first boyfriend, her first driving lesson, all treated like national events. When it was my turn, silence. I remember the day I got my learner's permit. I was so proud. I'd studied the manual, practiced the signs, aced the test on the first try. I burst into the kitchen holding the little card, expecting at least a high five. My dad barely looked up from his newspaper. "Good, don't wreck the car." That same week, my sister failed her driving test, and my mom hugged her, telling her it was just a sign she was destined for something greater than driving around a suburb. She even baked a cake to cheer her up. Meanwhile, I sat in my room wondering why passing felt like failing. High school only made it worse. She was the straight A, honor roll student, the captain of the debate team, the one with college recruiters sending letters. I wasn't a bad student. I hovered around B's, sometimes A's, but in my parents' eyes, that was mediocrity. I loved art. I loved sketching in the margins of my notebooks, staying up late trying to get shadows just right. But whenever I showed my mom, she'd say, "That's nice, but don't you think you should focus on something more practical? Your sister is working so hard on her law electives. You should be more like her." Even socially, the comparisons never ended. If she got invited to a party, my parents gushed about how popular she was. If I stayed home, they said I should learn from her confidence. But when I did go out, my mom would warn me, "Don't embarrass yourself. Remember, your sister has a reputation to uphold." I couldn't win. By the time I graduated, I felt invisible. My senior art portfolio had actually won a small regional award. I remember standing on stage, clutching the certificate, my heart pounding with pride. My parents didn't even come. They were at one of my sister's debate tournaments, because that's more important for her future. My aunt clapped politely for me, but it didn't erase the empty seats where my parents should have been. College was supposed to be my fresh start. I chose graphic design, something I actually loved. My parents were disappointed. "Why waste tuition on something like that?" my dad asked. "Why not follow your sister's path? Law school has stability." I ignored them for once and pushed forward. I thought maybe distance would help. I thought being a few hours away would give me room to breathe. But favoritism travels over phone lines too. Calls from home always started with updates about her. She just got another scholarship. She's interning with a big firm. She might graduate early. When they finally got around to asking about me, it was always, "Are you eating enough?" or "Don't waste time on silly projects." And yet, I kept hoping. I kept waiting for the day I'd do something undeniable. Something so big they couldn't ignore me. I thought maybe when I graduated college, or when I landed my first real client, or when I moved into my first apartment. But every time, the spotlight shifted right back to her. I didn't realize it then, but living like that slowly eroded me. I second-guessed every decision. I downplayed every success. Even my friendships felt shaky, because deep down, I believed I was less than. If my own parents couldn't be proud of me, why would anyone else? Still, a small part of me held on to a fantasy. That one day, they'd finally see me. That one day, I'd walk into the room and not be the other daughter, but simply me. That fantasy carried me into adulthood, but adulthood had its own harsh lessons waiting. After college, I moved to a small city and started freelancing as a graphic designer. I loved my work, the freedom, the creativity, the ability to build something of my own. But even in my 20s, my parents' favoritism didn't stop. Whenever I visited, conversations immediately centered on my sister, her job, her promotions, her engagements. I learned to smile and nod, pretending it didn't sting. Then I met Daniel. He's kind, funny, and sees me, really sees me. For the first time, I felt like someone appreciated me without comparison, without expectation. After 2 years of dating, he proposed. I was over the moon, finally imagining a life where I could shine in my own way. I wanted my parents to be happy for me. I truly did. That's when the wedding planning nightmare began. I picked a date months in advance, hoping my parents would celebrate me for once. Instead, my mom's first reaction was, "Oh, have you checked with your sister? She might have plans." She said it like it was a fact, not a question. A week later, she called crying. "You know, she's having a family reunion that weekend. Can't you move your wedding?" My dad joined in, adding, "It would just be so selfish to make her rearrange everything." I couldn't believe it. My wedding was suddenly an inconvenience. The resentment I'd carried for years, all those times my achievements were minimized, bubbled to the surface. I tried reasoning with them. This is my day too. I've been planning this for months. But they twisted it. "You're just being selfish. Why does everything have to be about you?" Even my friends noticed. One night, after a particularly exhausting call with my mom, I collapsed on Daniel's couch, crying. He held me tight and said, "You deserve to be celebrated. This isn't your fault." I clung to that.
hoping somehow, when the day came, they'd put aside favoritism. I was wrong. The first real heartbreak came when my parents didn't show. Not even a call, not even a text. Their absence was a physical ache, like the empty chairs at my wedding table were confirming everything I'd felt since childhood. I was always second, always invisible. The morning of the wedding, I tried to shake off the anxiety. Daniel was calm, joking about his tie being crooked, and for a moment, I almost felt normal. But every time I checked my phone, the emptiness hit me again. No messages from my parents, no good luck texts, just silence. My sister, of course, posted cheerful pictures of her family reunion, captions like, "Family time is everything," as if she had no idea what she was doing to me. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Daniel and I exchanged vows under a sunny sky, my friends and his friends beaming around us. But when I scanned the crowd, my heart sank. My parents' chairs were empty. I could see the hurt in Daniel's eyes, but even he couldn't fix the gaping hole their absence left. Later, at the reception, my mom called. I picked up, trying to sound cheerful. "Honey, we're so sorry we missed everything. We just didn't want to conflict with your sister's plans. You know how sensitive she is." Her words hit like a punch. Sensitive? I wanted to scream. This is my wedding. How am I supposed to compete with her sensitivity? But I stayed quiet on the phone, just nodding, letting her excuse stand while it burned inside me. Over the next few weeks, the manipulation intensified. My parents sent messages blaming me for forcing the family apart, for being self-centered and jealous of your sister. They made me doubt my own reality. "You're overreacting, you're imagining things." It was classic gaslighting, and for a moment I felt myself shrinking under it, wondering if maybe they were right.
Then came the night I realized I couldn't anymore. Daniel and I were talking after another exhausting call with my mom, and I finally snapped. I could feel all the years of being invisible, ignored, and manipulated flooding out. I told him everything: the childhood, the birthdays, the broken promises, the favoritism, the pain. And that's when it hit me. I had been waiting my entire life for their approval, waiting for recognition that would never come. The next morning, I called my parents. I told them everything. Not politely, not apologetically. I said, "Do you hear yourselves? Do you know how much you've hurt me my whole life? Your favoritism, your comparisons, your absence, it's over. I am done needing your approval. I am done being gaslit. You cannot control my happiness anymore." The line went silent. My dad muttered something about ingratitude, and my mom sputtered, "You're being dramatic." But I didn't back down. For the first time, I wasn't shrinking. I wasn't apologizing. I wasn't trying to make them feel comfortable. I was speaking my truth. That was the moment I realized something important. I didn't need them. Not their approval, not their presence, not their validation. I was finally free. Months passed after my confrontation. I didn't reach out to my parents. They didn't call. My sister posted vague, passive-aggressive updates on social media about family drama and bitterness, but I ignored them. For the first time, silence didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like relief. Then came the pregnancy. I wanted to share it with my parents in person, so I invited them over for dinner. I cooked a roast chicken, set the table with candles, and even baked a pie for dessert. I imagined them smiling, proud, happy for me. Instead, the night quickly became another lesson in favoritism. When I handed them the tiny baby booties, my dad chuckled awkwardly. "Looks like your sister's kids will finally have cousins," he said. My mom frowned, and in a voice so calm it chilled me, she added, "Did you have to do this now? You know your sister's trying for another baby. It's kind of insensitive to outshine her." I froze for a moment. Outshine her? My baby? My life? My joy? Reduced to a competition? The familiar sting of invisibility and comparison hit me, but this time I refused to swallow it. I stood up, voice shaking but firm, and I told them everything again. "Do you hear yourselves? This isn't about your sister. This is my life. Every achievement, every milestone, every moment I tried to share with you, it's always about her. I am done being gaslit. I am done being manipulated. I am done waiting for your approval. You cannot control my happiness anymore." There was silence.
My mom's eyes welled up, but not with guilt, with frustration. My dad muttered something about me being selfish, but I didn't care. I could feel the weight I had carried my entire life lifting. For the first time, I truly believed it. I am enough. I don't need them. I don't need their validation. My husband loves me. My friends love me. And soon, my child will grow up knowing they are loved for exactly who they are, not for being better than anyone else. I finally realized that the perfect family image they clung to was fragile. Their obsession with appearances and favoritism couldn't hold up against honesty and truth. And as I looked around at my small but supportive circle, I knew something else. I had stepped out of the shadow. I was finally free. I wasn't the invisible child anymore. I wasn't defined by comparison or neglect. I was me, whole, proud, and untouchable. Months turned into a year, and the silence from my parents never changed. At first, it stung. I caught myself wondering if I should call, if I was being too harsh, if maybe I'd gone too far. But each day, I felt lighter. Each day, I realized their absence didn't diminish my life. It made room for what truly mattered. Daniel and I continued building our life together. Our home was filled with laughter, messy art projects, late-night talks, and little rituals that made it ours. I started sharing my work online, and for the first time, I felt proud without waiting for anyone else's approval. My designs, my choices, my creativity, they were mine, not a footnote to someone else's success. When the baby was born, the world shifted in the most beautiful way. Holding our child, feeling their tiny fingers curl around mine, I understood something my parents never could teach me. Love isn't conditional. Recognition isn't something you have to beg for. You don't need approval to be whole. My baby's arrival was my victory, my proof that life could be joyful, even without their validation. I still see glimpses of the family I grew up in. My sister posting carefully curated snapshots of her perfect life, my parents clinging to appearances. But I don't feel envy anymore. I feel pity, maybe mostly freedom. They are trapped in their own narrative of control, comparison, and judgment, and I am finally outside of it. I've learned to celebrate myself. My wins, my joys, my milestones, I revel in them fully. I let myself laugh loudly, speak freely, and embrace my choices. And when I think back to the little girl whose mug was ignored on Christmas, the teenager whose achievements were minimized, the young woman who begged for recognition, I feel a quiet, fierce pride. I am no longer the shadow. I am not the invisible daughter. I am me, unapologetic, complete, and free. And the best part, for the first time in my life, I am enough, just as I am.